Hello. I'm here today with Peter Wright, Special Counsel to EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler. Peter, thank you for being with us today and providing us with a preview of what attendees to the ABA Master's Class on Complex Environmental Liability Resolution from CERCLA to Brownfields may hear if they attend the ABA conference on June 12th in Atlanta. My name's Ilene Munk, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Master's Class, along with Todd Davis of Hemisphere Brownfield Group in Ohio. Todd and I have, along with a esteemed planning group, have put together this Master's Class, and you have been gracious enough to agree to do the keynote address at that conference. The listeners on our podcast today are curious to hear about any EPA guidance or new policy initiatives which EPA may be releasing at the conference in June.
Well, thank you very much, Ilene, for inviting me to speak at the conference, and for today's podcast. I very much look forward to seeing a number of my ABA colleagues at the meeting in Atlanta. With respect to any new initiatives, I think it will be an opportunity to provide everybody with an update on a couple of initiatives, not directly related to liability, or maybe depending on your view, I can give an update on what the agency is doing on PFAS. I can talk a little bit about the regional reorganization, and of course, we'll talk a lot about Superfund and Brownfields.
Excellent, excellent. So I know that the Superfund Task Force released their report in the early days of the Trump administration. That task force had 5 goals and 42 initiatives for Superfund reform. Can you tell us a little bit about which particular reform initiatives are going to see the most focus in the year ahead?
I'm not quite sure that I think particular goals will have more focus rather than others. I think a lot of that is if you will, is really up to the user who's interested in particular topic areas. What I can tell you, and what I'll be able to fill our those who are attending a little bit more on, is just where we stand in terms of completing the work of the Superfund Task Force, which will be completed just a little bit after the conference, and a report coming out shortly after that. And so I'll highlight, what folks can expect to see in the final report, and some thoughts about how we plan to go about implementing the various reforms in the report, including a little bit of a discussion about the development of metrics, to keep us on track. And of course, I'll also be very interested in hearing, from the audience about their ideas about things that we can do to continue to improve and reform the Superfund program.
Thank you. So what are the administrator's top priorities with respect to NPL sites specifically? The audience at the master's class is going to be largely private practice attorneys that do both complex Superfund sites as well as Brownfields matters, and a lot of them are involved in NPL matters. What can we expect to see as a result? Okay.
Well, one of the things, and I'll talk about it more at the conference, is, you'll continue to see the regular updates of the administrator's emphasis list. So far, we found that to be very effective at, helping certain sites kind of move along the process. And in addition to, just overall, Superfund, continues to be very important for Administrator Wheeler, and he's very supportive of the efforts of the task force to move sites through the process more quickly. Much of it with a focus on the redevelopment of the site. Whether that's for a future commercial use or recreational use, but to really work with an end in mind, as a way to accelerate, the pace of Superfund cleanups, and to bring, in addition to environmental protection, environmental benefits.
That's great. So can we switch now a little bit to a discussion of Brownfields? Is Brownfield redevelopment still a priority for U.S. EPA?
Oh, absolutely. Brownfields remains a, critical part of, certainly of the program, the Office of Land and Emergency Management, and of the agency overall. Actually, it will be just before the conference where we will be announcing the grants of this year's Brownfields program. But it continues to show incredible return on investment, if you will, for the money that EPA issues in grants for a Brownfield program in terms of the returns to the communities and the overall economy. So, for example, recent studies show that residential properties value increased 5 to 15%. That they're near brownfields properties that are assessed and cleaned up. So we can talk a little bit more again at the conference also about some of the new forms of grants that are being issued this year. But it absolutely remains a critical and a top priority.
As a believer in cooperative federalism, how do you see stronger cooperation between EPA and the states streamlining EPA's overall mission?
Well, in the EPA strategic plan, we identify cooperative federalism, goal 2, as a fundamental priority for the agency, and that is, sharing accountability between EPA, the state, and local government. We continue, for example, to engage with our partners at ECOS and at SWAMO in discussion about, both Superfund work and Brownfields work. Talking about opportunities to, to better do an overall management of cleanup sites across the country. And I think core to that is to try to understand, which sites are really those that, if you will, require or would best be served by federal attention as opposed to other sites that might be better served and are more within the bailiwick of state and maybe even in some cases local governments.
In terms of congressional action, do you think that brownfields redevelopment is an issue that could enjoy bipartisan support?
Well, I hope that continues to be the case. I think it's received very strong bipartisan support over the course of the years. It's something I've said a number of times since I joined the agency. Nobody doesn't like brownfields, so it remains a very popular program, and so I would hope and expect that will continue. And again, I think that does relate to the fact that it just is so effective on so many fronts.
Do you ever see tax incentives being available to support brownfields redevelopment akin to the low-income housing tax credit program?
Well, it's sometimes hard to predict exactly what the federal government will do with respect to the federal tax code. I mean, one feature, and we'll talk about it at the upcoming conference, and that's the Opportunity Zone program, which is has been put in place to promote private investment in distressed communities and hopefully to encourage investments in brownfield redevelopment. Qualified Opportunity Fund investments may also include investments in the assessment of cleanup at brownfields. I do believe it was the case several years ago that there was a tax credit that allowed for brownfield cleanup costs to be deducted as project expense, but I don't know that I could predict whether Congress will direct the IRS to, provide that tax benefit. But I continue to expect strong bipartisan support for brownfields initiatives.
Do you anticipate EPA proposing any big changes to the NCP in the next year?
At this point, I don't think we anticipate making any proposals to the NCP, but I certainly wouldn't rule it out. I mean, within that time frame, but I wouldn't sort of rule it out potentially after that time.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. You are in a unique position because you not only have been an attorney in private practice, but also now at EPA. You understand what it's like on both sides of the table, and as a result, I think you're in sort of a unique position to be a problem solver at the master's class and help provide insight. So thank you for spending some time with us today, providing a preview of the kind of things that attendees to the master's class on complex environmental liability resolution from CERCLA to Brownfields are likely to hear on June 12th in Atlanta, Georgia, and we appreciate your time with us today.
Well, thank you very much, Ilene. And as I said at the beginning, I very much look forward to catching up with ABA colleagues, and particularly will value their contribution, ideas, thoughts, and suggestions, because we certainly need them to move the Superfund and Brownfields programs, forward and faster and better than ever before. So look forward to the conversation.